this computer was a big part of my childhood, and since its release until the year 2017 I enjoyed it very much, despite it running Windows Vista. We never really had any major problems with this computer, but it did begin to slow down. At that point it was time to move on, and we now own a newer computer running Windows 10 and it works just fine. But anyway, after removing the side panel, taking out some wiring and taking out a card, we now focus on taking out the CPU heatsink. Once I disconnect the fan connector, the entire assembly is freed. So then, moving all the wires to the side, I then depress on some tabs to take out all 4 sticks of memory. Now that that is out, I now lift a small lever and our fiber CPU is removed. The next thing that I do is to take out the case fan by removing 4 screws. Once a cable is disconnected, our second fan comes straight out. And now that everything is freed, we can then focus on removing our motherboard. All we need to do here is just remove a bunch of screws that hold it in place, and the reason why I'm taking care of this now is because there's really nothing that's holding it in place or blocking it. The power supply is easily off to the side and not interfering with the board whatsoever. However, it's not just the motherboard that's being held down with screws, it's also the CPU bracket that is around where the CPU would be. That is also being screwed in, which also holds the motherboard in place. So the idea is that we also want to take out our motherboard bracket that holds the CPU in place. And now that that is out, we can finally take out the rest of our motherboard. Now when I take it out, you can also see a small little metal bracket that also just happens to come out with it. So now, some additional cables are disconnected for our drives, and we've now removed the power supply with another 4 screws. Those screws are removed, but the power supply is in place, so we just depress on some metal to take it out. The next thing is we need to focus on some method of taking out the drives. There are quite a few of them in this computer, so we shall see what we get. Something that is interesting about this computer is the use of metal hinges or arms to secure the drives in place. So after fidgeting with them a little bit, I then decide to take out the front panel. And once that is out, the DVD drive will go straight out the front with its SATA cabling. Taking out 2 more screws here, another pocket media drive bay comes straight out as well. The next thing I do is try and attack the hard drive, but unfortunately it is very tight and hard to get to. So in response, I have to tackle it a different way. I take out 2 screws above that secures a caddy in place. This contains our hard drive. So after removing those screws and kind of shifting around the metal and pushing down on a tab, our caddy is removed and we can take out an additional 2 screws to free our hard drive. And this is also another SATA hard drive as well. So there's 2 on one side and 2 on the other. And now that that is freed, the drives pretty much slide straight out, and we are now really close to finishing this computer. At this point, I just removed a single screw in the front to take out all of those USB panel connectors. There is a little bit of wiring being held in place with a metal clamp, so I just kind of work that out and get it loose, and the whole thing comes straight out. Pretty easy. And now there is one last front multimedia bay connector thing with all the boards for the cards and such. All we need to do here is take out one very small screw, and the big screwdriver is just not the right size, so we use a smaller handheld screwdriver, and with the removal of 1 screw, the whole assembly starts to come out, and I just use a little bit of mechanical persuasion. And now that that is gone, we are pretty much done here. So, this was our first computer that was pretty much complete, so this was a great teardown. Inside we had some screws, a decent amount of wiring for what it is, some front interface connections, a power supply and DVD drive, a pocket media bay, a SATA hard drive with a motherboard, a modem card, and 4 sticks of memory, which could have resale value depending on the size. If it's large enough, it might be worth flipping if you can verify it works. Or you can try to sell it as untested memory, but you may not get as much money for it. Anyway, in addition, we also had 2 fans, a nice thick aluminum heatsink, and an Athlon CPU. There are quite a huge number of pins on this CPU, and I think that is very interesting. So regardless, this is everything we got in this teardown, and I hope you liked it. Coming up next is our final computer, and I saved the best one of the horde for last. So keep an eye out for this video on Saturday, and I hope you enjoy everything I find in this upcoming computer, as it is my absolute favorite. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you all have a great rest of your week.